always have it. Tune in at 10:30 p.m. West African time and be blown by the detailed discussions of the parliamentarians. Eagle 7 brings to you on a silver platter the Sports Parliament every Thursday, 10:30 p.m.
Sports.
He's made good progress and scored one.
Music. And lifestyle. Be in the know. Stay with us on Eagle 7, 103.7 FM Abeokuta, where champions fly.
Good evening and welcome to the Sports Parliament, coming to you live from the studios of Eagle 7 Sports Radio in Abeokuta. It is on all social media platforms, so you can watch us from any part of the world. And of course, you can also listen to us on terrestrial radio 103.7 if you are in the Abeokuta environment, or you can check us on online at eagle7fm.com, and you can listen to us from any part of the world. Tonight, we are examining sports and politics. We're in the season of politics. And after May 29, 2023, we are going to start to have a preview of how sports would thrive or not in Nigeria. But for tonight, we are going to be having a wonderful conversation. You better sit up and listen. I have some incredible stories to tell tonight. I am Segun Odegbami, Speaker of the Sports Parliament. And sitting in Parliament with me tonight from his base, probably he has left Egypt now, and maybe he's in the UK, I don't know, he will tell us. But Satish Shekhar. Satish, how are you? Are you still in Egypt? I can't hear you, Satish. I can't hear you. I thought I could. But let's try Kweku. You should be on. Let's try Kweku. Kweku, good evening. How are you, Kweku?
Speaker.
I can hear you very well.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, Nigerians.
You should be saying good evening, because they are watching and listening to us from all corners of the world now.
We're all over the world now.
Incredible. And then we have Beauty and Brain in the house, the returnee to the Sports Parliament. I caught up with her last week and she promised that she will be on tonight. Anyway, yesterday was Women's Day, Women's International Day, so there's every reason for her to join us tonight, looking as beautiful as ever. Adenike Keenan. Adenike, unmute yourself so we can hear you. You are muted. Adenike, unmute yourself so we can hear you. Well, she is not with us yet, but unmute yourself if you can hear us. Okay, Satish. Now let's see if we can hear you, Satish.
Okay. I'm here in Egypt still. I was at the team, the Nigerian coach. He was saying he thinks it's a success. He achieved his target of reaching the World Cup. I asked whether Nigerians would see it that way, but that's what he said.
Say that again. That he has reached his target.
Okay. Earlier today, I went to the press conference, the pre-match press conference of the Nigerian coach, Bosso, about the third place playoff, and he was saying that he still sees it as a success because they achieved their primary target, which was qualifying for the World Cup. I said I wasn't sure that Nigerians would see it that way, as 7 times winners of AFCON under 20, but that's what he says.
Well, that's what he said. I am speechless. I have no comments to pass. Adenike, can you hear us? If you can, unmute yourself. Adenike cannot hear us for some reason. Unmute yourself. You are muted. You are muted. So unmute yourself and speak. Let's see if we can hear you. She can't hear us for some reason. Okay, we'll be going on a short break. When we come back, then I urge everybody to please sit down and follow proceedings into tonight's program. All right, now I can hear you, Adenike. Now I can hear you. But set your picture properly. Set your picture properly. Okay, we'll be going on a short break. When we come back, then we'll hit the ground running. After the break.
Oh no.
We are Eagle 7, 103.7 FM.
I guess I was unmuted.
We are Eagle 7, 103.7 FM.
The legs on under Sanchez. He's buckling.
It's a fantastic save.
Bringing you all the sports you love in living color. Eagle 7, 103.7 FM Abeokuta, where champions soar.
I am Buyi Adesanya, and you are listening to Eagle 7 Sports Radio, 103.7 FM.
Welcome back. Well, this is Eagle 7 Sports Radio, and this is the Sports Parliament. And yes, one or two hitches to start with, but we're going to have a terrific show tonight, I assure you. Adenike is in the house. We haven't heard her voice yet. She's looking as beautiful as
I hope you
ever.
can hear me now, Mr.
Now
Speaker.
we can hear you, so go ahead and welcome us. You're welcome back. You're welcome back.
Thank
to the show.
you. I couldn't hear anything from the beginning, so I'm here now.
Very good. And you are looking as pretty as ever. I like this, your gray hair. Is it premature aging? Is it what?
It was. I'll just describe it as a timely intervention, Mr. Speaker. Just that.
Wow, beautiful.
It's not so bright.
Beautiful. So where do we start from? We are in the season of politics. This is the season of politics. And for several months now, we've been, immersed in this atmosphere of campaigns and so much pressure and tension and uncertainty. And many of us who are in this business of sport, we have thought that there would be a lot of talk about youth engagement, about sports, about, entertainment, about that whole industry that is entertainment, which includes art, culture, fashion, beauty, music, dance, and sport, of course. But I'm not sure if the rest of you have been following and are keeping abreast to hear what the different political parties have been saying about sports after May 29, 2023. If there's anyone that knows, please let me know, because I have not as much. There's only I won't even mention that manifesto. But in the conversations that I've heard, in the campaign I've heard, and the discussions everywhere, I've not heard one day where the issues of sports are is not really considered a priority of governments. And for those that even supported sports at a time in the early 1990s, there was still a lot more. Take this conversation, sports and politics, and then for us to
I also let me even say that we have not heard anything coming from any of the candidates with regards to sports. and it's quite disheartening because most of the time we say, oh, maybe they just relegate sports to the background, but in my own view, I think it's a bit more than that now. It's a lack of understanding of the power of sports. It's a lack of understanding of what sports can actually do with regards to positively impacting the lives of citizens. We're talking about the health benefits. We're talking about the business of sports. We're talking about job creation. We're talking about poverty alleviation and so many other things. And it seems as if we still do not really understand what that power is. And it's something that we really need to get into to see how we can position sports for May 29 going forward. I think we have a good starting point if we are really serious about it. And that starting point is the national sports industry policy that was launched a year ago or thereabouts by the Honorable Minister of Sports, Sunday Dare. I've gone through that document. I was a part of the discussions that led to that document coming into place. And apart from the fact that the document is there, I'm quite pleased steps that have been taken so far in seeing that not only was that document produced begins. The first thing that has moved sports from recreation to business. Now, just a few days ago, or was it yesterday or thereabouts, I actually heard that a technical committee has now been set up that will look into the implementation of the national sports industry policy. And when you look at that technical committee, the composition gives a lot to look forward to. You have the likes of the Ministry of Finance represented, budget and planning, immigration, customs, the private sector, and so on and so forth. So, at the end of the work of this committee, to see is a plan that would point out clearly what incentives would I have if I decide to go into sports and the sports industry. What financial benefits can accrue to me of government. And I think this is a good starting point. Come May 29, the next step for me will be to a working structure that will make that implementation come back. A structure for sports. And what do I mean by that? I'm not sure the ministry setup will be the right one. Some people say we go for sports commission and so on and so forth. But we need to determine. So for me, these are steps that we need to take, and we need to begin to think in this direction.
Adenike, well, Kweku just said anything. I have not heard anything too, nor have I read. You are in the media heavily. Probably you have heard or read.
Mr. Speaker, I think I would agree with the rest of us that none of us that I haven't heard anything yet, and it's sad considering the benefits that get massively from investing in sports. And aside of looking at from what Dr. Tando said earlier, aside of looking at it from the perspective of business and health, let's just say the total well-being and the development of the child, which is social development too. What sports did to most of us growing up, it is unfortunate that most schools do not provide the platforms where children and talents can be discovered at that level. And I think it's going to be a total package, aside of looking at it commercially, is to see the benefits for the child, a Nigerian child, should it be done, and should the policies be implemented and followed duly, because a child who doesn't know the talents there are that he or she has may never for the rest of his life even discover it, no matter how attractive it seems later on in life. We know that there's a shelf life for every sports person, and if it's not discovered on time, then it's not harnessed and put to good use on time. So I think it has to be predominantly go, as much as I hate it to seem like a cliche or something we've said many times, it has to go pursue with education. And that needs to be really looked into. I'm optimistic that if the new government comes in, and when they come in, they see the need to work with the education sector very well and sincerely, I must say, as to discovering talent and then nurturing the talent to such a level that we can see them harness and make the best use of it as they grow.
Well done. What I see is that often government does not, as Kweku said, truly understand the power of sports. And I've been wondering, which is the best way for us to demonstrate to government that power? Most times all they say is it's a unifying force, it brings people together, and, when Nigeria is playing, nobody talks about tribe. That's very important. But the power of sports, actually goes much, much, much beyond that. Maybe we should go to Satish to just hear his own opening words at what this power of sport really is. How do we get government to start to see and appreciate what the power of sport is? Satish.
Well, as looking into historical issues of sport in particular and how sport has helped change the world. It was Nelson Mandela who gave the world the idea that sport was essential to social progress. But it was actually well before Mandela that this was happening. For example, the Algerian FLN team, even before that, you could go back to the 1920s and 20s, and you could see this as well. So the fact that sport and social progress are linked is something that's well known. So the question is, how do you fully utilize it? Well, one of the things you can look at is say, you have issues such as the FIFA Foundation, which supports various charitable organizations and social progress through the foundation. So I think you've really got to the point where there is a relationship between sport and politics and social progress. So you need to see how best to do it. Now that you have a new government coming in, you will have the opportunity, because it won't have its feet under the table. It will be interested in ideas. And one of the things that needs to be put forward very, very forcefully is that Nigeria has a rich history of sport and of making progress through internationally through sport, and that this needs to be highlighted in greater detail. So you need a plan, but the plan must be a long-term plan. It cannot be something of the next sort of 2 years or the next lifetime of the parliament, that you look at it and say, well, we want instant success. Of course you do. But when do you actually get instant success? What you actually get is a demand for instantaneous gratification. You don't actually get that gratification. You then get a new coach coming in, a new powers that be within the particular sport. They have different ideas. They also are promising instant gratification, and they don't deliver. Before you know where you are, 20 years has gone by and you haven't had any gratification, never mind the instant gratification. So my argument is, have a long-term plan, have an intermediate plan, have a short-term plan, and have investment in that. so that you actually know where you're going, you know what the sport is supposed to be doing for you, and you know how it is benefiting the country as a whole. So my advice would be have a proper plan and actually look to this to develop this plan before you go into developing the sort of future of sport. You have to have an integrated approach of both political involvement of those who can afford to be involved in it, and sport itself, because there is a limited pie. But you have to be able to work out how are you going to share this pie among all the various competing interests. That will be my suggestion. Have for this government to come in.
Yeah, something that is common. There are a few that one would really respect. And one of them definitely is Kweku. And but my own introduction, probably I need to just say my own introduction to the power of sports, appreciating the power of sports. I went to visit the city of Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, their biggest industry there is the Ajax Amsterdam Stadium, which is called the Amsterdam Arena. The Amsterdam Arena is home to football. Ajax Football Club plays its matches there, averagely once in 2 weeks. 1 or 2 hours, 3 or 4 times a week, they play their games. Does not sleep. It runs 24/7, 7 days a week, 300 days a year. They don't shut that place, and its contribution, economic contribution to the city of Amsterdam, is second to none. So how does it work? The reality is that the football that is played in the Amsterdam Arena is the least activity in the Amsterdam Arena complex. It's a huge industry. Events there that takes place there every week is for a few hours, and then it is gone. So how does the place now run 24/7? They said even 8 days a week, because the days run into each other, never shuts down, and it's making so much money. It covers everything. When you go to Amsterdam, the Amsterdam Arena, there's everything. You are looking for the school, it is there. You are looking for restaurants, it is there. You are looking for casinos, they are there. You are looking for everything about life. Is the biggest tourist center in the city of Amsterdam. So it is a very good demonstration of how to look at sports. That what you see in a football match, the 90 minutes of a football match, is the least activity in a football match. You start from the beginning of the week, and there's a process. You train. How many people are involved in that training? There's the groundsman, there's the person who opens the stadium, there's the security people who come there. There is so many. On a match day, imagine the number of cameras and crew and radio people and journalists and the security personnel that will come, and the stewards and the restaurants that will be running, and and all of those things will run beyond the 90 minutes of the game. That's a huge industry. The medical facilities will be running, the hospitality facilities will be running, and so on and so forth. So that thinking of sports like that was my own introduction to appreciating the power of sports beyond that actual participation. It's like Usain Bolt running his 100 meters, and you think it is the 1 minute he spends from warm-up to running it that is the industry. The industry is everything that supports him, from the airline to the the masseurs.
Of the business of sport. It's so sometimes it beggars belief that our not actually seeing that aspect of it. And I'll use an example. What do we need to do, or what we have to do to let them understand the power of sports?
Yeah,
I'll use the Nollywood and the music industry experience in Nigeria. It was not government that has made it what it is right now. The players in the sector decided that, look, with or without government, we are going to push this sector to begin to behave in a business manner. And they decided to do it. And today, everybody is talking about Nollywood. Everybody is talking about the music, Nigerian music industry. Everywhere you go in the world now, our music stars are all over the world because they decided to take the bull by the horn. I think those of us in the sports sector need to stop waiting for government to get things started for us. We need to put ourselves together. We need to work together, because that's another problem that we have in sports. A lot of people seem to be working in silos when it's better that we come together. And there's a power in the people that are in sports right now. But that power is in our unity, is in our development, getting together. We have to work individually. Interested, like government is not. If we don't show or prove that this money can actually come from sports into the government money, then we may need to wait for government for a long time, and that will not get us anywhere.
But there's something happening before, Adenike comes in. What you said is very germane, it's very true, but silently, there has been tremendous support by the federal government, Nigeria, for Nollywood and the music industry. There is special intervention that is provided by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's not as if every Nigerian knows it, but there's a fund both and the music
have gotten themselves together, and government now realize, oh, there's something here. Let us set that up. Or they didn't wait for government fund before they put down and organize themselves. Doing that, and the government saw it. So maybe that's what we need to do in sports. So let government it can do and add to its GDP. Instead of just talking, let's begin to, and then we will draw the attention of government.
Are we whetting your appetite, Adenike?
Just like to take up back to the days of telecommunication, when predominantly the government was taking charge, it was in the hands of the government. We realized at the time. I really want to say, as regards the government and the government's involvement and involvement in sports, when television was going to be privatized, it was apparent at the time that it was a necessity. Had gone around the world, and it was about time we did it right in Nigeria. And right is considering what we have and the many benefits that have been from the telecommunications sector. So if, for instance, we say the government wants to, maybe not totally hands off, but I would say that there should be still be some sort of commitment from the government. But then private sector really does have a very major role to play. And then it has to be credible people, credible organizations who are willing and are ready to do the right things. That is when I see that we will definitely see some change, because the trajectory has to really be towards making a great change in the sector because of the benefits that will come to the entire nation. So if we have private sector participation that would be brought in such a way that these are reputable names that have been doing so far with the little they had, and then the benefits are shown to them well enough to say, okay, yes, if we put this is what we're going to get out of it. At the same time, there's some sort of caveat to it that we have to be careful in order not to commercialize so much as to water down the importance of sport and the benefits that there will come. Say, for instance, we are particular about the back jobs. We want some certain in track and field now. They will say, oh, this is what it should be, not paying emphasis on the important things. So when we're talking about commercialization, which I think is an important thing, we should weigh our odds very well to make sure that those who are specifically who deserve to have it take charge of sports in Nigeria, and then see the benefits and plunge it back into the system. I don't make any sense that way. As
Absolutely.
To say, for instance, if we come on board, we should be because when they say, okay, now let's go ahead to that, you see people who don't deserve to be there showing interest. At the end of the day, the whole system is rubbish. So now, if we want this to work, we should say, for instance, these are the kind of people, these people have shown interest so far, and then have money plunge into it, because you can't sell something that is not sellable. It has to be attractive enough to sell it, and money has to be plunged in. The money from the right sources, so that we get it right and we get it done fast. It's high time we did it. It's high time we plunge money into it. It's high time sport is done right. But I would say at the same time, it has to be from the very grassroots. So we get it right and we push forward. That's
well, Satish, I want to tickle your mind a little. Can you just hazard a guess? Nigeria is a big country. Hazard a guess. How many viewing centers where people go to watch football matches every weekend? You know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, and then weekdays for the championships and so on. Can you just hazard a guess? This is for Satish. I know Kweku would have an idea. How many viewing centers there are in Nigeria? Hazard a guess.
What do you mean by viewing centers?
Where you can just go, not in your home, a bar, a lounge, you know, where the public can just walk in. Some actually charge fees. You go there and drink and watch a game. You have them in the UK, all those lounges and bars. Yeah. Hazard a guess, in Nigeria, how many viewing centers?
You would have thousands of them, but most of them would be watching foreign sport and not Nigerian sport.
Let me tell you, 4 years ago, there were officially 5 million viewing centers in Nigeria. 5 million viewing centers in Nigeria. Every street has a viewing center. Every street, at least one, has a viewing center. And if you imagine that some of those viewing centers have 2, 3, 4, 5 clients watching, some have 50 watching. You try to imagine the population of people who go to watch Chelsea play Arsenal in Nigeria every weekend. Yeah. It is that kind of number we are talking about. Now, be creative as a business person. How can you now get that small number to patronize your service, your product, your whatever it is, your message, that's a huge army. You don't find such even in the UK. What are your thoughts?
I would say you have to do some market research. What do people watching sport want? What products do they want? Because that's who you appeal to. The advertising that you allow on this would be along the lines of saying, for example, you could say to people, if they were interested in a particular product, you give that product away to the first 100 to come. And the rest of them, you give it to them at half price or something. So you gradually build it up. And you get them back into the habit of coming to see Nigerian sport. The biggest problem is that when you actually look at what sports they want to watch, it's the Premier League. It's the English Premier League that they will be watching. It's European sport that they will be watching, because their definition of success is sending their sporting people out to play in the bigger leagues, the European leagues. You will not develop Nigerian sport until you actually look at it and say, we have to have a plan that is about developing Nigerian sport for Nigerian people within Nigeria. And that means if you have to give away tickets, if you have to let people come in for free until they get into the habit of coming to see and supporting the sport in Nigeria, that's what you have to do. One of the ways to do that is by having various businesses sponsor it. I essentially say, you let the people come in free, but they come in free, they see your products, they see the things that you're advertising, and then in time they come to buy that particular product. That's how you actually get to these businesses, can get to the various people and get to their audience and actually do it both ways, so that they're actually benefiting from it, and so is Nigerian sport, and so are the people watching sport. That is how you can benefit from this. But essentially, you can also do things like talking to the government and saying, well, why don't you give certain incentives? You give incentives to crowds to come and see, watch the sport. You give incentive to various people who have the resources to invest in the sport. And from that, you start developing again, because you basically are at square one. You have to start again. You have people who are extraordinarily wealthy, who are interested in sport, but they're absolutely disinterested in investing in sport in Nigeria. That's got to change. You have the likes of Dangote, who has said several times he's absolutely not interested in investing in Nigerian football. He wants to own Arsenal. Well, why? What is stopping you owning a Nigerian club and also Arsenal, if that's what you really want to do? You can develop. And if they don't develop, Nigerians and Africans will look at this and see, well, they're not interested in Nigerian sport. Why should we be? And that's one of the big problems. The government has got to come in and say, why aren't people who have the resources investing in Nigerian sport? Talk to them. Ask them why they don't want to invest in Nigerian sport. And that's when you find out what you can do to change this situation.
Well, sport, look, some of us have done some research about these things. Sport is about the athletes. Sport really is about the athletes. It is not about this infrastructure or the event. It is about the athletes. If you have, for example, if JJ Okocha, Kanu Nwankwo had come back at the twilight of their careers, at the twilight, I'm just using this as an example, they are about to retire, 2 more years to go, as Brazilians do in Brazil, as Argentinians do in Argentina, as several of them do going to play in the USA. The USA developed that as a strategy to bring people to watch, which we tried in Nigeria on 1 or 2 occasions. I recall when Rashidi Yekini came and I saw his interest. 5 years after he retired, he still had an interest to be playing with my club in Ibadan, the Ambassadors, and a few other small clubs in Ibadan. He still had interest to play. I brought him to come and play for Gateway Football Club 5 years after he retired. And we went on a visit to Katsina. Katsina is probably the farthest place from Abeokuta where we were. He went to Katsina and they heard that Rashidi Yekini, the biggest football star in the whole of Africa at the time, 5 years after he had retired, was going to play with Gateway Football Club in that Katsina stadium. The stadium was jam-packed just because Rashidi Yekini was going to be there. You don't need to convince a Dangote if he sees that kind of followership of a club around players. If JJ had come back, do you know how much products and companies and organizations pay JJ to make an appearance? I have paid one of them before. 5 minutes appearance. Between JJ and Kano, I've paid one of them before. Don't let me say how much it is. 5 minutes. He did not even say a word. He just came into the gathering and brought down the roof of that place. 5 minutes. If a JJ, a Kano, a Celestian Babayaro, you know, one of those big, or some of those big players had come back into Nigeria, and Nigeria had good grounds where they could still exhibit their skills and all of that, and they had played in Nigeria, Dangote would have invested in a Nigerian club. Dangote would not invest in a club that has no name. It has no, just because it is a club, so it comes to invest and people are not following. That is one strategy that we can adopt. Anyway, Kweku, your thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, you actually spoke my mind. I wanted to respond to Satish, that a businessman follows the money. If the money is not there, he or she will not invest. So if your packaging is right, if the content is good and attractive and can make him more money, you won't need to beg anyone to come and invest in a Nigerian club. So I support what Mr. Speaker has said there. I also want to look at one aspect again. When we are planning our sports, and that's why I say that a lot of what needs to be done has to be done by we that are in sports right now, one way or the other. When we are planning our sports, a lot of things have to be taken into consideration for us to be able to get the best mileage for our sporting events. And I'll just give an example of what I mean. In 2013, you know, we were starting the Lagos International Table Tennis Open. And it went over a few days. You know, government was supporting it. It was Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola at that time. And the Commissioner of Sports was Enito Oshodi. I was the Director of Sports then. So we started that program. And I remember when we were having the finals, it was a weekend. And, you know, the finals were fixed for, I think it was a Saturday. And everybody said, oh, nobody's going to come to the finals because of the EPL. Everybody would want to watch the EPL. I think there was something happening at that time. And they were all telling Eniton that nobody will come. So, but we said, okay, instead of taking that as a deterrent, how can we play on that and use it to our advantage? You know what we did? We started the table tennis finals early, put large screens in the stadium so that if you come and watch the table tennis finals, you will also be able to watch the EPL on the live screen. When Mr. Governor came to the hall that day, he could not believe what he saw. And he was so pleased that now you people are thinking outside the box.
Absolutely.
We need to begin to do things like that.
Absolutely.
Another thing, on that same thing, when we started in 2013, it was free because we wanted people to come in. It has now developed to a World Table Tennis Contender Series. And about 4 years ago, we now charge gate fees for people to come in. Every year, we increase the gate fee because of the number of people that are interested in coming. So we need to be strategic when we are putting our sports events together. If we are really thinking like businessmen, we need to be strategic to maximize what we're doing with sports.
Very good. Well done, Kwiku. Well done. Adenike, you want to say a thing or two? Or we go on a short break? Let's go on this short break. Gather your thoughts.
Okay.
Let's go on this short break. When we come back, then you can now express yourself. After the break.
I am Buyi Adesanya, and you are listening to Eagle 7 Sports Radio, 103.7 FM.
My name's Ambassador Fani Amoemoen. You are listening to Front Page on Eagle 7 Sports.
The legs on under Sanchez. He's buckling.
It's a fantastic save. Oh,
Bringing you all the sports you love in living color. Eagle 7 103.7 FM Abeokuta, where champions soar.
piece of magic.
Yeah. 103.7, where champions soar. This is Eagle 7 Sports Radio, and this is your program, The Sports Parliament. Now, you can watch us, you can listen to us from any part of the world. We are on all social media platforms, and of course, we are on terrestrial radio as well. So, we are having our conversation. It's about politics and sports. And Adenike Keenan. Adenike.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I just thought to buttress what Satish and Dr. Tando have said, but there's an angle that we're perhaps not looking quite enough. It's the advent of new media and the reach. Sometimes we say that we don't get as much patronage as we should, but like we constantly say, the need to put the round pegs in the round holes. When the marketability of any program or any event or a tournament is as important as the athlete, the sports, the participants themselves. The reason being that you're attracted to what is good and you're attracted to what people say about something. And sometimes because we assume, okay, we have the conventional media supporting any program, we don't know the reach of the new media and the power, the kind of power the kind of power it has. A lot of influencers, like we see around now, are making so much money than most of us ever thought possible, and that's because they see the possibilities that avail in with new media. The advent of new media has given the opportunity for a lot to happen. Say, for instance, you have a match and you're talking about grassroots sports, and you want people to know about it, and you're just saying, okay, let's just say they're going to air it on radio, and you are not saying that you as a young boy or a young girl can actually see this on your phone, you can listen to it on your phone. That can only happen if the right people understand the marketability and they are doing their jobs. That can only happen. So if I were to say, for instance, advise the new government on the possibilities and the blessings that could come with sports in government, I would say that the inclusion of the new media as regards marketability and all should be put, because most of these young people only appreciate what they see on their phones and what they see on the internet. So sometimes, as much as we want to say times have changed, but we must explore that area and then
yeah, Satish, let me tell you, because you are, you are not Nigerian. Let me tell you this story. I think it was in the is for free. You are a consultant, hiring you to
their own management and that is of course world table tennis events that has been held, and I can are not dependent on government. They're privately run financially successful, and have the sporting point of view. So what it tells us is that if we harness all these things together, and we have national templates for our events, it means we can get somewhere. Now, the events are only one aspect of sports. We shouldn't forget that. We need to also be strategic in our sports development. We need to, to be comparable to the telecom sector, to the economic sector, but you don't go to those sectors and get there and find that there's no strategic policy or policy direction, or there's no strategic plan for those sectors. This is the same private sector that we want to support sports, that are also working in telecoms, that are working in agriculture and all that. Ability, visibility, sustainability. They operate on whatever sector it is. So it means, therefore, that for us in sports to compete sector support, we must be able to set up structures that will support sustainability, viability, transparency, accountability, and of course the all-round success that we want from the event itself. So there's a lot of strategic planning that also needs to go into it. We need to stop running sports by passion. I always say that many of us run sports just by passion. Passion is good, but passion has to be supported by knowledge. Passion has to be supported by expertise. We need to be able to begin to do that in sports.
Fantastic. Well, I have one more story to tell. That story is about Chioma Ajunwa and Mary Onyali. In 1 year, in 1996, on the eve of the Olympics in Atlanta, Mary Onyali was undoubtedly the fastest girl in Africa at the time. And Chioma, before she was banned, ran the fastest 100 meters in the world. And then she went on her ban, spent 4 years, and was training in Europe. And then people were just hearing that she was doing well. They hadn't seen her. Mary was doing very well, of course, in her base in the US, and she was coming to run in Nigeria. And then they both came for the trials to the 1996 Olympic Games. Both of them were in Nigeria. I don't know if you recall, Adenike, of that encounter, the media hype before the event, and the event, and the crowd at the confrontation between has never been a second 100 meters event that was in our history between Chioma Ajunwa and Mary Onyali, and come and see the sort of audience that came to watch her. As I said, it is about hygiene. It is about the quality of athletes and how you put it and how you sell it. Toby Amushan came here after breaking the visited a few people and went back. For me, that is the biggest waste. A Toby Amushan to come to do an invitational race like Akim Olajuwon did when he came to the National Stadium and brought down the National Stadium on one visit because he was going to play on both sides of a basketball team. That's the sort of thing we need. We have out there, and once stars are involved, oh boy, the money follows. Who follow them? So we have to start to think outside the box. Start to think of how to harness this huge talent of stars that we have to come and help us to develop the sports industry. With them, it will be a lot easier and a lot faster. Adenike, I see you nodding your head. We are giving, we are
I really
selling,
do
we are
agree.
selling.
Mr. Speaker,
Look,
I
what
agree
we are
with
doing
you,
on tonight's
especially
show. What we are doing on tonight's, we are just dishing out all the stuff, ideas and plans and programs and all manner of things for free of charge. That's why people should tune into the Sports Parliament every week now. Anyway, Adenike.
Yes, I think I agree with you that sometimes, especially lately, we don't get to celebrate what we have as much as we should. And that if we continue to be that way, others who are inclined or are most likely to better that what we have on ground may not just come up. If for instance the likes of Toby Amushon came and the kind of noise that was supposed to generate didn't come up, it just says a lot about the sector and how people are reluctant, how people are not encouraged. Because, Mr. Speaker, as much as some people will have the idea, it could easily be rubbished by a lot of people. As much as we hate to admit it, this sector is sometimes very selfish. If the idea is not coming from them, it's easily rubbished. Somebody somewhere may just want to do the right thing, but because you are not greasing the palm that you should, then it doesn't go anywhere. So the new government has a role to play with this. If we continue to allow mediocres to thrive, then we won't get far. Most of these things, a lot of people have the idea, they want to do it, but they are frustrated when they dare to. If Toby Amushon went that far, I remember the articles, I remember the noise all over, aside of television, on the internet. That particular time that she got the medal ignited a sense of patriotism that had not been there in a while. Most people said they understood the idea of the national anthem more seeing Toby Amushon go that far. And that's the kind of spirit that should be encouraged and done at the right time.
And harnessed. You harness it. You use it.
So why are we not having situations like that? Why, for instance, say, if we wait on the government to do it, then we would not get anywhere. At the same time, the government has a role to play. When somebody says, oh, this is what we intend to do with Toby Amushon, we are not going to extort her, because in most cases, you want them to come and do something and you're telling them it's for the sake of the love of your country. You don't get to see people come back to do that too. When you have a well thought through program and you bring it up and you say, for instance, oh, now we want Toby Amushon to do this, and then this is how much she's going to gain from this. And then you are not looking at how much you're paying Toby Amushon, but the effect, the impact on the youth. Those that see Toby Amushon as a hero, as their mentor, it would go a long way to help boost their morale, help with the attitudinal, give an attitudinal change towards wanting to do something for your country. If we don't get it right, and we don't do it right, with the right people that have the right ideas that should be encouraged, we're not going to go so far. We're not going to go so far. And times have changed. The people understand what they have now, and they want to make the days of, oh, you have to leave your sweat for your country, and then, oh, it's just for national pride. Yes, there should be, but there must be some take home. And until we realize that and we invest that into the sector, we push that and encourage people who are willing to do it, that would not be rubbished or taken advantage of, then we are not going too far. We're not going to go too far.
Kweku,
yes,
go on. Go on.
To what Nike said. There's always this thing that sector, they won't come in. Sector where they will get visibility, they'll get mileage, and they'll get something positive from the investment. And I'll just give just a quick example. I think about 2 years ago, one of our football clubs, Bendel Insurance, was able to convince a bank to do a front of shirt sponsorship. At that time, they were in the NNL, and I think it was about 50 million eventually. For them, it was just a test to see how things could be. A year after, Bendel Insurance did well, qualified for the MPFL, where they're doing very well now. And this year, that same bank has tripled the front of shirt sponsorship for Bendel Insurance. Why? Because they've seen value in what they did, because they've seen that the performance of the club is rubbing off even on the bank. And the bank wants to be associated with success. And the bank wants to be associated with a structure that is functioning effectively. That's what the private sector is looking for. And every one of us in the sports sector must begin to think like businessmen, whether we're running clubs, whether we're administrators, whether we're coaches, even as athletes, we need to begin to think like businessmen to be able to get the best of the private sector support for sports.
Where do we get these? Look, we need practitioners, professionals in the business of sports, because the field is vast and it is virgin. We haven't even scratched the surface. And here we are on TV. We are talking elementary business here. Whereas we need deep, practitioners. Where are we going to get them from? When people like Kweku, who is a master in this game, is still looking for work. Me, I'm looking for work now. I don't even have work. You see? But I'm serious. You can count the true professionals, on the fingers of one hand when you are looking at the business in Nigeria. Where, the experts abroad were looking for business experts in Nigeria, and they went round and around, and they couldn't find, and they called me, ordinary me, that I'm not even deeply in the business. It just shows that there's a dearth of true professionals, and that's one area you people should expand.
We're not maximizing the people, like you said. I mentioned something earlier. I said, we need to move from passion to passion plus knowledge and expertise. Some of us had to go back to school to go and study what we're talking about now. Yes. Strategic planning, sports. Some people went back to school to study sports business and all that, because you must be a professional. You must have that expertise to be able to offer your services to an organization. And if you don't have that expertise or that professionalism, then you're not going to be treated with the respect that is due you in that sector. So we all need to go back and study, do a lot of research, get certification, and know what is happening in the rest of the world, so that we can begin to apply that knowledge to our Nigerian environment.
Satish is just watching and wondering. A penny for your thoughts, Satish.
Well, there's not really much to add. They seem to be covering it very well. So I would say, everything that has been said needs to be adopted. You have the people investing, like the bank in Bendel Insurance, and seeing where that is actually leading and what benefit that they will get from that. There's your idea of getting the sporting people to come and attend various events, because people will come and see it and sponsor and pay for that. And Adeniki's idea of using social media. So I think all of these ideas are very, very, very useful, but they don't work on their own. Together, they could be something really special.
And something really, really special in Nigeria's space is the women. Women and sports in Nigeria. Look, I've always believed that, if we want to be the best in the world in sports, we must put our women forward. And they would do it for us, and then the men will just come and clear the rest of it. And the ladies have proven this through time, that in virtually all sports. Now they have even qualified for the Female World Cup. I can't wait for July to come, because I intend to be there. So women, we are celebrating you, Adenike. So what's happening?
Yes, about time.
Yesterday was International Women's Day. And we are using this opportunity to celebrate all of you for all the great things that you have done, both at home as family and for our country, Nigeria, and for us particularly in sports. You have been, like candles in our darkness. You have lit up our space in sports in Nigeria, and we want to thank you and commend you very well. So we salute you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, just in line with that, there's something that is going on right now in Nigeria that a lot of people are not aware of. It's going on in the women want to take over. We're talking about the women athletes and all that, but there's a growing group of women administrators in sports. And these people are going about it in the right manner. In the last 3 or 4 months, there have been about 5 or 6 international workshops and seminars on women in sports that have taken place in Nigeria.
Really?
I've been invited to 1 or 2 of them. Yes, some are virtual, some are physical. And there's a growing group of female administrators who are seeking knowledge in various aspects of sports administration. So I will not be surprised if very soon that aspect of our sports is taken over by women, because they are doing it the right way. Not just passion plus knowledge, expertise, what they're doing.
Fantastic. So, well, congratulations to the ladies. We thank you. And Satish, we were going to discuss something totally outside of what we have been discussing. You raised the issue of VAR and why it was not used until the semi-finals of AFCON. So you can talk about it now, very quickly, before we go.
Okay, well, it's no secret I'm a supporter of VAR. Because people have been saying for ages they want the right decisions to be reached. Well, the only way you're going to do that is by having the right to review errors. I'm not even interested in it being clear and obvious. I think if it is an error that could have affected the outcome of a result of a match, then I think you should be using VAR. And I can't see what the benefit is of not using the technology if you have it. For example, what happens if in one of the particular matches in the group stages, Tunisia had 3 appeals for penalties, all of which were turned down by the referee. Now, you don't know if this would have changed, but he was absolutely convinced if you had VAR, you could have gone and checked it and reached a decision that could have changed the outcome of the match. I don't see why you don't do this. The end result of it is, if you get through to the quarterfinal, then it matters. If you don't get through to the quarterfinal, it doesn't. That makes no sense whatsoever. You should be using the technology from the very beginning. That is essentially what Adel Salimi, the coach of Tunisia, was saying, and I agree with him.
Absolutely. Kweku, you have anything to say to that? Because I want to go on to back to our sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense that if you're going into a competition, then the rules of that competition should be constant from the beginning to the end. It's either you're using it or you're not using it. You can't come halfway and start saying you will do it. So I agree with what Satish has said, that there has to be consistency from the beginning to the end in a particular tournament or competition.
If we have one recommendation to make to the incoming governments with S, that is at state level and at the federal level, if we have one advice to give them, it has to do with the leadership of sports in every state and at the federal level. Adenike, kickstart this for us, that conversation. If we have a critical thing to say to them now about it, go on.
Mr. Speaker, I think my stance for anyone who's constantly listened to me has been very clear from the get-go that it is high time the right people, qualified people, are allowed to run football. Dr. Tando mentioned earlier that there's a difference between passion.
Football or sports? You said football, to run
what
football.
Did
you said to run football.
To run
sport.
Football. And then I think it cuts across generally too. Sometimes we want passion for expertise. And that in it just says that you are necessarily not going to get the best from passion. Its passion generally would not be enough for someone to qualify to be in a certain class, especially as regards administration. We know what it takes to say you understand or you have passion for something, but now applying it to work is just very simple. We have computer, and say, for instance, you see the efficacy or the power and the potency of what the internet does to you, but you're not tech inclined because, of course, maybe if you are from a certain age, there is the need to now learn how to use it. We know these digital natives, these younger ones are born into it, so they find it very easy to glide through. But then because you belong to the digital migrants, you need to now understand how to use it. That should be applied to sports as well. If you're going to say you want to occupy a position in administration, in sports administration, I would advise the government to pick on people who have not just the passion, but who have the qualification. And they are certified, okay, because Nigerians generally, we are smart people. We learn easily, and then we are a certificate-based nation. So sometimes we just say, I have a PhD in this, but when it comes to practicalizing it, it might be difficult. That is when you now need to build yourself around a team of people that understand the rudiments of the sport, of the particular sports you're in charge of. Put them together and make it work. It is not enough to say that, oh, I am this, and then I should be given this. Even as those that have even performed, say, for instance, our sprinters, football veterans, legends, when you want to go into this, let it be certified that you have the capability to run it. Most times, you're just bringing in somebody who is close to the people in power to say, okay, you go and head this, you go and head this. And those who have labored in that particular trade are not even allowed to do it. So my advice will be to allow the right people who understand the rudiments of sports to be in charge of sports administration, and allow them, give them a free hand to operate and enable them. Because sometimes you are put in an office and you're not enabled, you're not supported, then you'll fail. So it has to be a total package of advising those who need to, who have a flair for it, to go get trained, and then who naturally, because sometimes most times you can't give what you don't have. Because you played the game, you will understand what a player of your time felt, or the challenges there were. So when you want to now come into office, you'll be able to relate with them. Sometimes people just think you're being standoffish when you say, why is this person being here? What is this person doing here? Because they do not qualify to be in that place. So it is important to bring on board people who are considered okay and qualified to occupy such position. That way we will move forward, and that would be my advice to the government.
What Nike says is true. But that's the most difficult thing, as far as I'm concerned, that we've had to face since independence, almost. And I'm talking about sports, the sports sector. You know,
Yeah.
if you look at, you know, the health sector, of course you've had professionals in health who would head it. If you look at the media, you've had superlative journalists who have held that position. Look at every ministry except sport, and it goes from one regime to the other, and it's from one state to the other. No state is exempted. Some have done better than the others. What Adenike just recommended is the most difficult thing to happen to our sports in history. How are we going to do it this time? Your voice, so that they will hear that voice before we go finally. Be speaking to our president. You know, it's a new president, whatever party that comes from, is a new president. We're going to be having several new governors. And please just talk to all of them who are listening. And even if they are not, somebody will tell them that you said so and so.
Yes. How are we going to do it? Very, very, very difficult and very, very simple.
Okay.
First of all, we need to realize that the fundamental building blocks for sports in our country is in the states. So even more emphasis has to be placed on those who are responsible for sports in the states than the person that is in charge of sports nationally.
Very good.
Even though that choice is also important. That's number one. Number two, it's difficult because of the way and manner, you know, when they are allocating positions. There are positions that are category A, B, C, D, E. If
F, there's F for sports.
F
for sports.
Yes, and so sports is seen by most of our political leaders in the past, except maybe a few of them, as possibly in the E or F category. And so it is reserved for, okay, who have we not given something? Okay, you go and manage this, rather than who is competent enough to do this. We've had a few exceptions. At least I know Lagos State has had a couple of exceptions in that regard. You know, even nationally, we've had one or two exceptions. But the truth of the matter is that thinking needs to change. And that's why I go back to what I said initially. There has to be a mindset change of where sports is in the minds of our leaders with regards to its position, its effect, its effectiveness, and what it can bring to the country. If they understand that, then they will put more attention in choosing someone that will make them achieve that goal. So let's be hopeful and hope that this time more states will get it right and will also get it right at the federal government level.
Can we move a motion that everybody should listen to your advice? Or
yes, I think it should.
Okay, Adenike, we are almost out of time. Satish, last words from you. Just last words from you.
Well, I don't think there's really much to add.
Okay.
I think everything has been said, and the other parliamentarians have really put the case very, very well.
Thank you. And well, we wish you a great time. The rest of your time in Egypt. Enjoy it, man. Kweku, you have done very, very well today. This has been a master class. It has been a master class. I hope that all those that listened would have benefited from your experiences and your knowledge and, you know, all the information you have just dished out to us today. Thank you. So, Adenike, will give you the privilege to move a motion for adjournment until next week. Adenike.
Mr. Speaker, I move a motion to adjourn till next week, hoping that by the time we'll come, we'll have... No, the government will be in place by then.
No. We'll be having elections next week.
The opportunity of discussing, but I'm coming up with better discourse on how next, or how best to move the sports sector forward. A better topic.
Well, on that note, we've had a wonderful time tonight. All those in favor of Adenike's motion for us to adjourn until next week, Thursday night, again, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
Buddy.
Good night, everybody.
Eagle 7, 103.7 FM. The station that brings you excitement. The station that's epic. The station that takes you high to the sky like
Good night, everyone.
Hello, guys. I'm Engineer Kayode Adeniji, aka Mamola Data. Keep on listening to Eagle 7 Sports Radio 103.7 for the best in sports information and entertainment. This is your station of choice. Anytime, any day, anywhere.
Eagle 7 Sports Radio 103.7 FM. We have sports and music